आपादमौलिपर्यन्तां गुरूणामाकृतिं स्मरेतेन विघ्नप्रणश्यन्ति सिद्धन्ति च मनोरथः लक्ष्मीं तनोतु नितरां नितरानपेक्षमङ्घ्रिद्वयं निगमशाखिशिखाप्रवालं भैरम्बमम्बुरुहडम्बरचौर्यनिग्रहं विघ्नातिभेदशतधारधुरन्धरन् सर्वेषां स्वागतम्. So we are at the Saṃskāra session for the 26th shloka. So the two concepts that we find mentioned in the verse is pratyaksha and paroksha. These two words have their own meaning in different concepts also. In Vyakarana, it can mean something. It can, in Pramanas, it can mean something. We spoke about the different kinds of Pramanas also. So when we talk about Pratyaksha and Paroksha, we are not taking it in terms of Pramanas, but there is Pratyaksha is a type of Pramana. So we have to borrow that concept from there. But here, Paroksha doesn't belong to that category. It's mostly an umbrella term. So here, Pratyaksha is direct perception. So there is something called a Sannikarsha. When we look at the medium or the receptor of a certain data and the data, the contact between those two is called a Sannikarsha. That means when the receptor receives that certain data, and my eyes can receive only a certain kind of data. Therefore, when I reach that, so that when it reaches, and then I am something, this is some vastu, I am Gajaha, etc., etc. Like that. When that contact, it is not just seeing, it has to contact the brain and it has to give a knowledge of what that is. When it happens, and this is all symbolic, it doesn't mean that, okay, I don't know what this is, therefore I don't know, there is no Sandikasha. That is not the case. The perception is much more psychological than that, much more principle based rather than direct customization. So when I see an akriti, when I see any kind of thing that it has guna, etc., 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 when I see that, and by seeing that, and it goes up to my brain, it conveys the akriti, etc., etc., and my brain is able to connect it to anything that I know or don't know, or what it has heard. It gives some impression. I haven't heard of something. Some new technology has come up, but the identification, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does. But the recognition that it is some technology also has resulted in Sannikarsha. So Pratyaksha is a direct perception of it. So Pratyaksha is mostly associated with the data that we receive through eyes. And we have Anumana, that is through Anumiti, and Upamana, and then Shabda Bodha. But here Pratyaksha is direct perception, and it refers to immediate and intuitive knowledge or perception, and it is the direct experience of reality. There is no space for processing anything over here. It is immediate. So that is the reason, even if I don't know anything, I don't know what this is, I haven't heard of it, immediately I see it, I get something out of it. That is, okay, it looks like a stick, it is thin, it is straight, etc., etc. I can perceive the qualities of this, the nature of this. So that is pratyaksha for me. And there may be, it may be subject to some kind of analysis later on, but that is not a part of pratyaksha. That is the difference. So it is not it is the direct experience of reality. There is no medium in between that. There is no space for analysis. There is no space for rethinking or anything like that. Reasoning, inference, etc. is not done. So I see something, I experience it. I touch something, I experience it. So that experience is pratyaksha. Then what is paroksha? Paroksha is indirect. There is mediation of it. It is inferential knowledge, basically. So it is that knowledge that is acquired through reasoning or inference. So in this case, when I see the existence of like for example, when I see smoke, dhua, when I see that coming out of something, as in usually in Nyaya we give the example of Parvato Vanhiman. So in the Parvata we see that smoke coming up. If the smoke is coming out of that Parvata, it means that that Parvata has that quality of being flammable or being able to catch fire. Therefore, it has the nature of flammability. Therefore, it is Parvato Vanhiman. Vanhiman means that quality is there within it. So this is inference. We are not looking in there. We didn't bother about the quality or the nature of anything. It is direct perception. Here we are looking into the nature. So that is paroksha. So in paroksha, it is not just experience, it is inference. This is extremely important. So here, why it becomes important even in our daily life here, because if we are looking at the scriptures also, I said this before also, why it becomes important for paroksha. We do not have a direct version of Ramayana. That means nobody from that yuga came and told us what happened in Ramayana. We have narrations of Ramayana. And out of that narrations also, we have different people giving us different versions. Nobody was there. Pratyaksha Rupa, nobody has seen it. What they are writing is also something that they have heard. Out of that, we find that Valmiki Ramayana is the most authentic because we believe that there was an aspect where Maharshi Valmiki witnessed Ramayana. So that is the reason I said, when I have accepted that Rama is an avatara, my ability to justify his deeds is a little reduced, because I don't have to give that prayatna. I don't have to, when everybody believes that that person is great, there is some person, everybody believes that that person is great. Obviously, there will be an aspect of apprehensiveness with respect to judging his acts, no? With respect to judging his acts. He did something, and immediately, because that person is perceived to be great, nobody will judge that immediately. So I know this. When I have lived through that point of time where he's proving his capability, then everybody is being critical about it. Rama has not proven that he is the avatara. Nowhere he proves it in the Ramayana. He never shows the Parabrahman Rup. So during Ramayana, when Ramayana is happening, you will not find any mention that he is the avataras. He is completely open to judgment at that point of time. He is completely open to judgment at that point of time. There are many different aspects like that. So there he has to prove his worth. He has to prove his worth. He has to debate. He has to give reasons. When we see the later stages, that is, after that person is gone, after that person, that era is completed, then what happens? A certain perception is built about that person. So therefore, based on that previously established stature, his stories, we cannot say completely that there is no reality only, but his stories undergo a certain kind of narrative change. It starts to show his greatness without realizing, because we have already agreed, no, that out of this, the outcome is that it has already been judged that he is great. So therefore, now it has to Atishayukti. It starts to the narration undergoes a certain change in the framework. So that is through inference. That has to be understood. That is what paroksha. That is not pratyaksha. So both has their own validities. Pratyaksha Rupa also has its validities. That is the reason we cannot get rid of it. We cannot say, oh, it is just experience of direct reality without any inference, so let us get rid of it. That is not possible. Pratyaksha also has its validity. Paroksha can also be misleading. That is the reason we need to understand. Had Krishna not given or shown his Vishwarupa, then probably there would also be many concerns with respect to his Parabrahma, his qualification as Parabrahman also. Even now, when we say he did show his Vishwarupa, he gave his Vishwarupa Darshana, what is the proof of that? It is only literature. And when in that literature, we find that in Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 11, Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, when he explains that, then we see that Vyasa Maharshi, there is very little space for alteration because it is directly from that one particular source. We find that it is intact because everybody is following that only. Nobody can alter that because it has become so pristine. Nobody can alter that. But unfortunately, Ramayana being a more older, ancient, it has its own different versions. And these versions are not given by some layman or anything like that. They are all great people. In Yoga Vasishtha, you will find direct mention of Ramayana through Vasishtha Maharshi. And he is not someone that you can ignore. In the same way, Valmiki Ramayana, it is Valmiki. In the same way, when we see Adhyatma Ramayana, it is Vyasa or attributed to Vyasa Maharshi. So these are not people that we can say that, okay, that person is better than this person is better than that. That is not possible. Because of that reason, we have to understand the timeline, Paroksha Rupa. We have to understand the eras in which these have been composed. We know that when Maharshi Valmiki wrote his Ramayana, that was due to a direct uh, witness of the account. It's a direct account. When it comes to Vyasa Maharshi's Adhyatma Ramayana or any other Ramayana, it is in a different era. At least it's in a different narration style. Era, though we cannot confirm. It is in a different narration style. So from that, what can we infer? We can infer that while Maharshi Valmiki's Ramayana is a direct account, there won't be any space for inference. That means he did not sit and he did not judge. He did not take time to analyze. He wrote it as it is, Yatharupa. So in the same way, what happens, because he didn't get that particular time to judge, or either he didn't do it, the consequential part of it is not judged. That means it happened, so happened like this way. Because of this, what happens later, that connection can only be made in postmortem analysis. Now it cannot be done. So when that happens, we need to understand that literature narrative is different, and we cannot go exactly by that because there is atishayukti in the paroksha literature. Some parts of the heroic nature gets amplified, showing that, oh, he did this, many of the things. Heroism gets amplified to an extent where the poet or the narrator will feel that, oh, it can be justified because it's Rama. It can be in both ways. See, what is the biggest argument that we find? Rama supporting Rama, exiling Sita. It is that he followed Rajadharma. So Atishayukti happens over here where the narrator is trying to show that for the sake of Rajadharma, to keep up Rajadharma, Rama did such a work also. That means he became so detached to Sita that he even exiled her, which actually makes sense. because it, to those people who want to uh, amplify his dharmanishta nature, what happens is, when they say this, they say it in such a manner that his disciplinary action to keep up Rajadharma is brought, or is given more limelight than the consequential action of sending Sita to exile. That aspect is brightened, it is shown. So therefore, what happens? They will be able to justify it, saying that okay, he did it for the sake of dharma. But what happens over time? The people who have done it, or the people who have narrated in such a way, they are not there to justify it, and the thinking of that era changes. Everything is subject to Deshakala Patra. Nobody is above that. Humans are definitely not above that. When the time changes, thinking changes, then the question, it starts to occur: why wasn't enough reading given to Sita's part of the tale? So that is where the conflict arises as to why Rama's nature of a dharmanista is being enhanced in one context, where within the same context, another connected incident has not been given as much scope. Practically, it has not been given scope. We will not find any scripture that has read deeply into it, saying that, oh, Rama went through so different things, he did so different things. There is no explanation given as to what is the reasoning between why Rama did it. No scripture is explaining that. Nothing goes into detail as to, oh, he did this because of this, his reason for this, etc., etc., etc. No. Where in fact you can find that when Rama um, he exiles himself. That is when he leaves Ayodhya for Vanvasa. At that point of time, many different explanations come ki Raghukula Veer Sada Chaliye, all those things. That was his Kula Dharma, to keep up his father's words, so that his father does not become subject to adharma, because it is his promise that gets broken if he doesn't go. No, that one. All these things, explanations are there, but for this particular decision, there are no explanations given. So probably when the narration has come about, what has happened is the narrator is of that notion that to enhance a certain aspect of Rama, if I put this part also, it won't make a difference, because there is acceptability as to what Rama was as a dharmanista. So therefore, what has happened in the way of narration, not much scope is given into this. We are trying to find out what that is. We are trying to dig deep into it. In this point of time, something that we simply need to understand is whether there is too much, however much we try to dig it out, what we understand is that the events cannot be certified the way they have been explained. The validation cannot be done in the way they have been narrated. That the world was in awe of Rama's gesture for exiling Sita, that is, all those things, we cannot justify it, we cannot validate it anywhere. So every person who feels differently will have a different stand regarding that. What we can simply do is that if there is a positive in a certain incident, that positive must be adopted. If there is a negative in that particular incident, that negative must be subjected to relevancy. Nobody is saying we should reject it. It must be subjected to relevancy. After that, it is up to us to accept it or not accept it. Because whether our acceptance is given or not, it will exist as it is. The scripture is not going to change. The scripture is over there only. Whether I want to use it for just parayanam, whether I want to use it for um, uh, bringing about some change in my life, whether I'm reading it for the sake of somebody else, for my own sake, etc., etc., that will not change. So accepting the negatives of something is also it's all up to us. But fixating on it will always lead to a negative energy within ourselves. This has already been explained. Fixating on anything will lead to some kind of krodha. Here we have krodha, not anger exactly. It leads to some kind of aggression. Why some kind of aggression? The mind starts moving, thinking too many thoughts. That is aggression. So many things are coming into my mind. He did that, he didn't do it. Why did he do that? So I'm attaching myself to that thought. So ultimately, if there is something positive about an incident in Ramayana, that should be taken, that should be considered, because there's no problem with considering something positive. Everything has two different sets of perspectives that cannot be given up. So one side will argue and the other side will argue, etc., etc., etc. Rama had some reason for doing it. There, why he did it cannot be answered, but he did it. If there is a positive, if we can see something positive in that, that should be accepted. If we cannot see something positive in that, all we see is negative, then we have to subject it to Deshakala Patra. If we are not able to understand the relevancy of the topic, then better to not even try to dig further. If we see both the positive and negative, then we know what to do. Positive can be adopted. So always this pratyaksha, paroksha have their own forms. They are viruddha against each other, because whatever we experience immediately cannot be justified by paroksha. Paroksha rupa cannot justify whatever pratyaksha is giving out. And pratyaksha also cannot say that paroksha has to follow whatever it is showing. That is also not possible. So here the only thing that we are doing is we are considering Valmiki Ramayana as pratyaksha rupa. Therefore, we are keeping one standard. Immediate experience, there is no. If anybody wants to understand why I'm saying this, I think the best example is there is a book called as Indian Struggle. This Indian Struggle was written by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose himself. It is a memoir. He has written it, he has documented it. I think from 1938 onwards, he has documented it. What were the changes that happened in the freedom struggle, etc., etc. And those are, aankho dekha, as it happened. There is no judgment over there. There is no something related over there. He is just documenting what has happened between those years. Consider that narration with respect to the textbook narration that we see today. It has already, the textbook narration is summarized, as well as, because we already know what the result is, we have already tried to connect a particular event to a particular thing. Like, for example, if we say in the 1930s, when after, I think, the Salt March, or maybe before that, not sure. There comes a period where there is something called as the Swatantra Party that has been started by Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das and as well as Pandit Motilal Nehru. The reason they do that is because Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Mr. Gandhi, is jailed at that point of time, and therefore they want to keep the freedom movement alive. That's all. They tried to form another party because all the heads of the, or the so-called heads of the Congress party are behind bars, jailed by the British, and therefore what happens is these two people, they form their own party and try to push the freedom movement in some way or the other. It doesn't become as famous as anything. Okay, it doesn't lead to any great satyagraha, it doesn't lead to any kind of consequence, etc., etc., etc. Now, what happens is after Mr. Gandhi is released, further, then what happens? even those people who detracted to the Swatantra party, they come back and the Swatantra party is left without any objectives and it gets absorbed. They're all back in Congress only and they start to move about in that direction itself. INC itself takes up the freedom struggle. It becomes the front runner for that freedom movement. Now, because there was nothing, no big movement from Swatantra party, I can easily judge because it has been such a long time. I can judge just from the textbooks. I can judge it may not be as significant. I've already made my judgment over that. It may not be as significant. Therefore, you will not mention any mention of that particular topic, how it was formed, who was there, etc., etc. Except for these two names, you will not find anything about it in the textbooks. But when we go back to that period where it was started, at that point of time, when the leaders of the freedom movement were all behind bars, all anybody needed to sustain up that particular independence movement was a hope. That hope was given by Swatantra Party. So can we say that it is irrelevant? We cannot. So Pratyaksha Rupa has more facts. Paroksha Rupa has more connections. That connections is purely my inference. So understanding this, how two different eras can bring out two different narrations with two different ways or experiences is important. So even now, I'm not rejecting the facts over there. Facts will remain facts. The way it occurred is something it is very difficult for us to understand. So mostly it is considered as Valmiki Ramayana as the standard. So going by that standard where Uttara Ramayana is not given that preference and there is a dispute among many scholars that Uttara Ramayana might not have occurred the way it did, or that it was added later on and that it has a lot of grammatical discrepancies. All those things it doesn't considering that. And also in one oddity is that we know this has been popularly attributed to Vyasa Maharshi, that is Adhyatma Ramayana is popularly attributed to Brahmanda Purana. It is a part of it. Brahmanda Purana is said to be written by Vyasa Maharshi. Here the problem, the oddity is that we can question whether he was truly the author of it or somebody from his Guru Shishya Parampara was did that. But what we certainly know is that Vyasa Maharshi did write Mahabharata because there is clarity over there. There occurs Ramopakhyana, that is around 700 shlokas. Story of Ramayana given to, I think it is to Yudhishthir in Mahabharata. There is no mention of Uttara Ramayana, which is the oddity. Why not mention it over there? Why mention it over here? That there is an oddity over there also. So there is very deep problems with the narration of Ramayana. So what we can do is not worry about that part. This may lend to understanding a certain question that might be lingering. But why this text is important for us is because of the Adhyatma Tattva and the positive psychological impact of Sri Rama Gita. Whether it is fictional, whether it has been, whether it is Paroksha Rupa, Pratyaksha Rupa, whatever the narration may be, we cannot deny that the essence of Adhyatma Tattva, that Advaita, Siddhanta, all that has been depicted in this particular 62 verses of Sri Rama Gita. That we need to understand. So here, Pratyaksha and Paroksha are nothing but Pratyaksha Rupa is what we are seeing in ourselves. That is through manifested form. What we are experiencing. Paroksha is the inference. Only through inference, understanding materiality, and then what leads to materiality, what is the tattva that is giving rise to materiality, and understanding the nature of that Chaitanya, then finding out that the true Chaitanya, pure consciousness, also has the same total identity as that Chaitanya that has given rise to me or the whole creation, then we can come into an understanding where the pratyaksha paroksha, when we remove that viroda nature of them, then we understand that there is some samya, there is some equality between them. Equality would be a little too much. I think there is total identity between them. So there, then what should be done? It should be one must merge one. Then the practices would start. One should merge to become one with it. That is, the effort must be made for the self to merge with the pure conscious, because the self has that particular element that is shared with the pure consciousness, that is Paramatma. Jivatma has that particular element. So this is Pratyaksha and Paroksha as given in this. We went into different topics, but it was a part of this text, I suppose. So the Pratyaksha and Paroksha is a part of the Saṃskāra that we have seen in this 26th shloka. Astu. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः प्रतिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषा गो ब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि।